Welcome to the Ford Innovate 191 sales event, driving better SUV value for you. Take the new Ford EcoSport, featuring Ford Sync navigation with touchscreen, Ford Pass with Wi-Fi connectivity, rear-view camera, parking sensors and cruise control. And right now, you can order a 191 Ford EcoSport with an amazing 7-year warranty, 7-year roadside assistance and 2 years free servicing. All from just €23,525. Ford Innovate, driving better value for you. See it for yourself at your local participating Ford dealer. Offer ends December 10th. Ford, go further. Price excludes delivery and related charges. Terms and conditions apply. See Ford.ie for details.
Welcome into Sportsmemo's College Football Every Game on the Board podcast. It's championship weekend, Teddy, and we got the top half. We're going over here from a Vegas perspective. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Drew. How about yourself, man? No complaints. It's a rare rainy Thursday in Las Vegas.
Rainy Thursday in Las Vegas. How many rainy days are in Las Vegas in a calendar year?
Oh gosh, maybe over under 8. I mean, like an actual rainy day, over under 2. But sometimes you get maybe 2.5. Sometimes you get afternoon thunder showers. Sometimes in the summer, and you get the passing shower. But this is a legitimate rainy day right now, at least. So. And that's the one beauty about living in Vegas, that you're never like, oh, damn, it's raining today. Or, you're like, yeah, cool, it's raining, which is such a different attitude than you have pretty much anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it affect the lifestyle as far as what you can do, and the roads are slick and everybody drives crazy, or no, not really?
Yeah, everyone. Oh my God, when it, I mean, the one time, when we had a dusting of snow, there were accidents everywhere and all that. But even the rain, people are just struggling to drive in, for sure. And of course, the desert doesn't absorb any water, so everything just bounces off and then rolls out, and it's real easy to get into the flash flooding spots in a lot of communities around town, because as you know, Vegas is constantly under construction because they keep building out here, and all the construction zones end up being quagmires when it comes to rainy days. So beware if you're in Vegas today, but you know that already.
It's a tough life living in Vegas, Sin City, great city, one of my faves for sure. But Teddy, we got the top half of the card here, 303 down to 316, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific kick here on Friday night. The MAC Championship, Northern Illinois at Buffalo, 51 the total. Buffalo, Lance Leopold and company. I mean, he's built a hell of a program there, and they're laying 3.5 in the championship game. We got some 3s at some spots. How would you look to bet the Huskies and Bulls here?
And that's an interesting debate about Leopold. Did he build a hell of a program, or is he riding a group of seniors, a great defense, and a great quarterback in a conference that doesn't have them? We'll see next year for Buffalo. But this is a goal that the Bulls set for themselves last year. Remember, they were bowl eligible last year and didn't get an invite. They got snubbed, and a bunch of guys got together and said, next year we got to do something different. And lo and behold, here they are. Playing for the MAC championship. So I like the senior-laden teams who, in general, like, hey, this is our goal, and now bang, they've accomplished that goal to get here. But, of course, getting here are not going to be enough. They have to win the game if they're going to truly accomplish what they set out to do. And look, from an offensive standpoint, there's no comparing these two teams. Tyree Jackson can throw the football around. Buffalo can run. Buffalo's a passing game. Northern Illinois has none of that. But what the Huskies have is the best defense in the conference by a pretty wide margin. And that obviously makes them a live underdog in just about any setting. But, sometimes you say, all right, well, the team clinched their spot and didn't play well. I did not like the way the Huskies looked the last couple of weeks of the regular season. Back-to-back losses and an offense that isn't that good to begin with. I don't think they can shut down Buffalo completely. And I don't think they can trade points to them either. So if I'm playing, I'm laying. I can understand. And then some of the sharp books are showing signs going to go down to 3. Mostly, the vast majority of 3.5s out there right now. And the Northern Illinois' offense is so limited. And it's not like Buffalo's a bad team defensively, especially the imagination. Just their offense is better. 2 good defenses, 1 good offense. I think the Bulls minus the spot.
Teddy, couple things. I mean, one great breakdown. This is at Ford Field in Detroit, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I think NIU, they have the pedigree, one of, if not the best programs in the MAC. Buffalo coming up of late. I do believe Lance Leopold is building a more of a stable program rather than just riding a couple talented guys that are senior laden. Just considering what he was able to do with his stop before here at Division III, I believe in Wisconsin Whitewater, he built that program up to Division III title. They went 9-3 ATS this year, as opposed to NIU 6-6 ATS. And also keep in mind, betting totals with Northern Illinois, they had 2 overs and 9 unders. So, be careful if you're looking to bet this over, because you're right, it is all defense. I just think a lot of people are seeing this and seeing Northern Illinois kind of more of the pedigree program, where really I think all the talent is on Buffalo. It being at a neutral site, I think that, the climate being in a dome actually helps Buffalo and the offense throw it around. So I think it's a cheap price here on the Bulls.
Look, Northern Illinois for the season didn't average 20 points a game. That's not good. And obviously, okay, they're not playing Iowa or Utah, this week. But, when you're hanging a 7 on Miami O at home, 7 against BYU, they are not a good offensive ball club, and turnovers continue to be a problem with Northern Illinois. Turnovers for Buffalo have not been a problem at any point this season, with the lone exception of that one debacle, and also the last time they were on national TV, and that debacle against Ohio.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people see that as well. So hopefully it's a little value here. I bet Buffalo myself. Guys, we got 2 games on Friday, but first want to throw out a coupon code here, Teddy29 at checkout. You can get Teddy's 3-day all access for only $29. That's half off at sportsmemo.com. He's been great in college football, over 60% since 2013 in totals. Profitable on the year, flirting with 60% in college football. We got Pac-12 action on Friday night as well. Doubleheader here, 7 o'clock Eastern kick in the MAC game, and we got 5 p.m. Pacific kick, Utah, Washington. This one, neutral site in Santa Clara, I believe. Looks like 44.5 the total, with Washington laying 5.5, Teddy. 5, depending where you shop.
And it's a fascinating point for to consider. Because think about this. Back in September, Washington went to play Utah in Salt Lake City. At that point, the Utes had their starting quarterback in Huntley and their starting running back in Moss. Washington was 5-point road favorites in that game. They won by 14. Now, it's 2 months later. It's a neutral site game. Utah has lost their veteran starting quarterback, going with Jason Shelley, who, he's not awful, but he's not the Huntley by any stretch of the imagination. Going with their backup running back. And again, he's not awful, but he's no Zach Moss. And here we are talking about basically the same point spread for Washington on a neutral, as opposed to being in Salt Lake City and Utah being without their 2 best offensive players. That speaks volumes about how much the Huskies have disappointed their backers this year. All they've done is cost people money. They had 2-point spread covers going into last week. One was that game against Utah, and the other came against BYU in a game where, the Cougs really couldn't do a whole lot. Now, they did get a point spread cover last week against Washington State. Obviously, that was aided and abetted by the blizzard going on in Pullman last week. But it's still a Huskies team that, because of their repeated ATS failures, they're being priced fairly cheaply. That being said, Utah deserves to be here. And even without a Huntley and Moss, the last 2 weeks, we saw them go on the road to Colorado in a dangerous spot. Dominated that game. Last week, a no-show in the first half against BYU, and second half, 5 touchdown drives. So Utah, Whittingham, it just impresses me again and again and again with what he's able to accomplish. But, they scored 7 against the Huskies defense the first time, and that was at home with their skill position talent healthy. I worry about the Utes' ability to move the football up and down the field against a Washington defense coming off another brilliant game last week in the Apple Cup.
Teddy, you're bringing it on today's podcast. I love what you had to say. I got a lot on this game as well, Teddy. Couple things. In that first game, Washington 21, Utah 7, Washington did benefit from a +2 turnover margin. I watched every play of that game. I had a bet on the Utes. That game played a lot closer than that final score indicates. A great point on the quarterback and running back both being down. And I'll add to that, both of those guys are NFL caliber athletes. Zach Moss, I believe, will be on a NFL roster as a running back.
Yeah, for sure.
And Tyler Huntley, he may not play quarterback, but he's a next-level athlete, in my opinion, Teddy.
He certainly has that potential. And obviously his brothers had some success as well at the NFL level.
Yeah, and a couple things here. Pac-12 North Division has won every Pac-12 championship game since the inception in 2011. I think this is one where I think Utah, not that the wrong team's favored, but I would look towards Utah here. Washington, I think they're getting a little bump. They look good versus Washington State, but keep in mind this is a point I love and really try to take advantage of it in the betting markets. Snow on the ground, like you talked about, against that Washington State offense. Mike Leach throwing it around. And keep in mind, Gardner Minshew was the quarterback for the Cougars. He's a guy from southern Mississippi, and it's not like he's spent 5 years in Pullman and has dealt with cold weather all the time. He's a southern Mississippi kid. That was likely the first competition he's played in a football game with snow on the ground. So I think a lot of that is kind of helping the Washington backers here a little bit. So I think Utah's the side here, Teddy.
Yeah, worth noting there is a decent chance for rain on Friday night in Santa Clara.
All right, we got 307, 308. Moving to the Saturday card, UAB Middle Tennessee Conference USA Championship game here. 43.5, 44 being the total. Looks like this one opened 3, MTSU being favored, now all the way down to 1.5. What are you thinking about UAB Middle Tennessee State here, Teddy?
So, you talk about a short turnaround rematch. Of course, these two teams met last week. And it was a very one-sided affair. Middle Tennessee allowed a grand total of 89 total yards in that ball game, 90 through the air, -1 on the ground for UAB in that first meeting last week. All that being said, last week, something of a throwaway game for UAB. And what happened? They were down to their third string center, I should say. Their left guard, Cook, was quote-unquote sick before the game and didn't play. And the right guard was ejected in the second quarter. So the middle of that offensive line, that's been a pretty good front for the Blazers all year, when none of them played last week, and the results were obvious. All three of those guys could play here, which is a significant improvement for UAB. And boy, you look at that Blazers defense. I mean, there's so much to like about what Bill Clark was able to bring to a program that was, non-existent when he got there. See them in the CUSA title game. Truly impressive. This is a Blazers team. They allow just 2.2 yards per carry in Conference USA play. Now, a lot of that sacks. They are tied for number 1 in Conference USA, 37 sacks on the campaign. But make no mistake about it, this has been a really good defense all year long. That being said, you want to bet against a senior quarterback in his senior moment at home playing for the conference championship in a near pick'em range. That's what you got to do to back UAB in this ball game, because Stockstill was on fire down the stretch. And again, it feels like he's been here for like 10 years. I think is he a 6th-year senior?
Yeah, he's been there forever, for sure.
Yeah, he's been there since his dad got the job as head coach, which was like 11 years ago. But down the stretch, Stockstill 16-3 touchdown interceptions in the last 6 games of the season. Certainly a Middle Tennessee State team that, unlike UAB, they've been dancing around this. They haven't been there and able to win this game, but they've certainly not coming out of nowhere. And playing on your home field matters when you have a senior QB who is the best player in the field, certainly from as good as anybody on the field for either squad in a near pick'em price range. So, I've got the utmost respect for UAB. I really do. They're not a team I'm in any rush to stand in front of, but I'm not playing the game. Let me be honest. But if I had to, I would probably look to the Middle Tennessee side.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think there's a lot of sexy things to, like, the common better about UAB. You talked about the injuries on the offensive line. Spencer Brown, he only took one rush attempt, and then he was taken out of the game for, an unknown sickness. So a lot of things pointing towards, like, UAB kind of being the sexy side, but you touched on it, Teddy. I mean, MTSU has stock still at the quarterback position. He's the best player on the field. He's way better than Ederle, who's okay. I don't know about way better, but you're right. It's just the home team. I think the market's getting a little bit too cute here. I think MTSU's the side. Teddy, we got a AAC championship game here, 309-310, Memphis, Central Florida. You got a free play up right now at your homepage at sportsmemo.com. You guys can read it there for Teddy's full analysis on the game, but we're seeing 64.5 with UCF, mostly threes, some 3.5s out there. Keep in mind, Bet Online, who opens the market, limited action they're taking. They open this 10, so we rarely see a 7-point move at this point in the season. But Teddy, what are you thinking here, Memphis UCF?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how legitimate a move that is. When he came off the board and came back out, and it was 3. Daryl Mack is no Mackenzie Milton. He's not. And when you say, oh, he'll be fine, 5 of 14 passing off the bench last week. He had to start early in the season at the
ECU.
Yeah, I just realized in my write-up I wrote UCF, and I better change that. At East Carolina. And East Carolina is no good, all right? And certainly not defensively. And it was a similar story for Mack. He had 20 pass attempts to 69 net yards. That's a 2-dimensional offense all year. That's now a 1-dimensional offense. It's an elite quarterback. That's now, a Frosh QB trying to game manage. I understand what UCF's done. They've been great. They've been great for 2 years. You can't lose a guy like Mackenzie Milton and expect to win and expect to win by margin. UCF was lucky to win the first meeting between these two teams. They had a rally from behind to steal a 1-point win with Milton making all kinds of plays. And when you talk about Darrell Henderson, what do you have? Like, you average 8.6 yards a carry this season. It's just ridiculous numbers. Second leading running back in the country behind only Taylor in Wisconsin. But first time around against this defense, $199 on the ground at 6.4 yards per carry. I don't know that UCF's going to shut them down this time either, and I don't know if they can rally back with a QB. So I can only look at the dog in this one. Maybe Mack does something that I haven't seen yet, but in 2 previous chances, this kid has looked very, very green. I don't want a green QB in a conference championship game, even at home, with so much on the line.
Yeah, no, interesting angle there, Teddy. I will say, I guess, to the argument towards UCF, how much do you take this into account? Yeah, his numbers aren't eye-popping to you, but, they won with ease in both of the games he played.
Exactly, which to me is an even bigger concern because this is a game they're probably going to need him to make plays.
Okay.
It's easy enough to have Mack. Hey, here's your QB. You can game manage. You can throw incompletes, no problem. Oh, by the way, now you're down. You're down 10 in the second half. What's this QB going to do for you?
Great point. We got 3-11, 3-12 up next. Texas, Oklahoma. Is it okay to refer to this as the Red River Shootout right now, Teddy?
I suppose it is, even though it's not.
All right, we got 77 being the total. Seeing 7.5s and 8s. That's the Sooners laying in this one. Yeah,
the Red River rivalry, of course, that's a regular season matchup between these two teams. This is for a conference title, so, I suppose you could call it that, but it's not. This is the Big 12 championship game. And, I don't know, I watched the first meeting. You said you watched every play. I watched every play of that first meeting between these two, and, Kyler Murray, boy, he was impressive in that ball game down the stretch, as he's been since. Oklahoma scored 45 in that game. They've had 50 plus, I believe, every game since then. And that was like the first week of October. This offense is as good as anything that you're going to see. It really is. Let's see, 45 against Texas, 52 against TCU, 51, 51, 48, 55, and then 59 last week against West Virginia. Now, should they concern that they gave up 46 to Texas Tech, 47 to Oklahoma State, 40 to Kansas, and 56 to West Virginia by this span? Only one of those 4 victories against lesser competition. West Virginia's not lesser competition, but 3 of the 4 were against lesser competition. And the defense not getting stops in any of those ball games has to be concerned. And with that type of offensive production and only winning one of those games by more than 5 points, something of concern for Oklahoma, revenge or no revenge. That being said, we do have to, Tom Herman's record as a dog, which is, beyond ridiculous at this stage. And he's doing it again this season. We saw him win the first meeting between these two teams. We saw them pull the outright upset against TCU early in the campaign. And in some places they were +1 against West Virginia. Got a push out of that one. But betting against Herman as a dog has not been a profitable endeavor. Not at Texas, not at Houston, not when he was offensive coordinator at Ohio State, not when he was offensive coordinator at Iowa State. In fact, you want one of these under-the-radar jobs. Yeah, everyone's looking at, this is Herman at Texas. Go back and look at Herman as a dog since he became offensive coordinator at Iowa State. My number showed 23-1 with a push. That's a pretty good track record in this role.
Teddy, we got the Sun Belt Championship game, 3-13, 3-14. UL Lafayette might be considered Louisiana or La, depending on which way you want to go with it. At App State, 58.5 the total, 16.5 App State laying at home in Boone, North Carolina.
Yeah, I've always liked La, because it just makes you feel like you're singing, Yeah. And so, we try to find joy in moments in life, and when you say La for Louisiana Lafayette, it just brings a smile to your face just about every time. Of course, these two teams met during the regular season, and it was, I'm not going to say a completely one-sided affair. It was a grind-out game, 27-17. App State got the win. Lafayette unable to run the football, but they were able, unable to, run the football to the tune where they were putting big points on the board. Obviously, they were scoring 17 points in that ball game, but what they were able to do was keep the App State offense off the field, and that's meaningful when you talk about a fairly explosive offense. Of course, that Mountaineers defense is no joke. They've held 6 opponents under 10 points. They've allowed more than 17 only twice all season. Total might be better than the side in this one. 8.5 looks a little bit high when you know what the Raging Cajuns want to do. They want to grind it out. And while App State, yeah, sure, the offense has some explosiveness, we know the strength of that team. The reason that they're chalk like this in this ballgame is because of that defense. So, one team really wants to shorten the game, keep it on the ground. The other team is pretty elite defensively. A total of 58.5 seems a little bit high for this better.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. And Lafayette also showed the ability to go to Boone earlier in the season and hang in there with them and keep the game under as well. I think that points towards your argument as well. We got 3-15, 3-16 finishing it up here, Teddy, in the SEC Championship. And guys, remember the coupon code TEDDY29 at checkout. That's TEDDY29 at checkout for the next 3 days. All access of Teddy Covers service for just $29, less than $10 a day. 3-15, 3-16, Georgia versus Alabama, 63.5 the total. 13.5 or 13, depending where you're shopping. That's the Tide laying in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta on Saturday.
Yeah, so, I mean, they haven't played this year, but they played for the national title last year, and it was a pretty darn close game going to OT, obviously, before the Crimson Tide escaped with the 3-point non-covered victory over the Bulldogs. But it's worth noting that Georgia's offense didn't work in that game. And at times this season, that offense, I felt like Fromm was looking over his shoulder a lot this year. He did not progress as I expected him to. That being said, Georgia, boy, they played their best football coming down the stretch. And Alabama, the tax to back the Crimson Tide is beyond significant. It's extraordinary. But what else are you going to do? If you're an odds maker, the betting markets don't have a lot of choice with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Bama, by the way, they've been covering again 5 of the last 6, including against Auburn last week. So, they went through that mid-season 3-game ATS slide. But, when Alabama goes into the Big 12, the big SEC championship game with an 8-4 ATS mark, that's not good for bookmakers and ensures that we're going to get a point spread like this one. So, you can ask a bunch of questions for this ball game. But first, the number one question I'm asking is where the points come from. This total to me looks really high. And I understand Tua and what he's done, and he's the Heisman winner and all, and that Alabama wants to test Georgia deep. But we haven't seen teams exactly march the football up and down the field against this Bulldogs defense. They had the one, and it wasn't even that bad of a game against LSU. It was all turnovers in that contest. With the exception of that, no one's really moved the football effectively against this team. Maybe Missouri back in, that road game back in, was that September? It's been a while. And for all the success that Alabama's had this season, you find me a defense that's as good as Georgia's. LSU's defense is pretty good. Bama wasn't marching the ball up and down the field in that ball game. Couldn't throw the football at all. Mississippi's defense is pretty good. And Bama, I don't think they had 200 yards of offense in that game against Mississippi State. So they put up these monster numbers against a whole bunch of, either weak or mediocre defenses. Here they're facing a good one, and I wonder if the Crimson Tide gets tested. Of course, we have to say it because the conspiracy theorists are out there. Alabama and Notre Dame are in the national championship picture. If Alabama loses this game and Georgia wins, the SEC gets two teams in, and Ohio State / Oklahoma, they get frozen out, flat out. That's something that, maybe in the back of your mind you think about. I don't know. But I can only look at Georgia. I can only look at the under in this game.
Teddy, conspiracy theorists, it's funny you bring that up because that was my question to you. So just the coin flick pass interference calls, is it a holding, is it not? That's all going to go Georgia's way? What do you think?
This is what I'm saying, is that it's worth about, $15 million for the conference?
Exactly.
To get Georgia in, because Georgia doesn't get in if they don't. So that's a lot of money. I've heard projections anywhere between 10 and 20 million, what it's actually worth between A and B. But the bottom line is, am I saying that's going to happen? Of course not. I don't believe in conspiracies. I don't think that a lot of this stuff happens on a conscious level. On an unconscious level, sometimes it does.
Well said, Teddy. Also a stat for you. Bama 1-8 against the number versus the last 9 teams that have averaged over 200 yards rushing. Georgia qualifies there. That goes over the last 2 years. Anything you put into that stat, Teddy?
It means that you're always laying a premium with Alabama. That's really what it means. And you are here, but on the other hand, if Bama goes up 2 scores here, what's Georgia going to do? If that defense is doing, Alabama has, and I know all this, what happens if the Alabama plays the Raiders? By the way, the Raiders should be favored by 3 to 4 touchdowns minimum in that ballgame because the NFL players are that much bigger and they're full-time as opposed to the college kids who are part-time. But Alabama, from a power rating perspective, is power rated as high as I've had any team ever in college football. And that includes the truly elite teams, the great USC team of the mid aughts, the Vince Young Texas team, the Miami team where Frank Gore's the backup running back. There've been some pretty good teams over the years. This Bama team power rated higher than all of them.
And do you agree with that number against the Oakland Raiders? Let's just say it was the same week of preparation, and I know a lot of people throw out the NFL team would definitely kill him, but really think about it. I mean, Alabama has they're starting 22, pretty much is all going to get a look in the NFL. And if it was a night game in Tuscaloosa, they both had the same preparation for the week. What would you really set the number at?
Oakland Raiders minus 3 touchdowns.
21?
Easy. Minimum. Okay. Minimum. I mean, again, I'm not. If you project out the careers of all the Alabama players and say are they going to be better than all the Raiders players right now, quite possibly. Mm-hmm. But if you say these teams are going to play next week, here's your NFL team and your college team. Even if the college team is loaded with every number 1 draft choice, even if Alabama had 32 number 1 draft choices on their team, I'd still take Oakland minus the spot.
Okay. Good stuff.
And Alabama does not have 32 number one draft choices on their team. But.
No, absolutely not. What, they'll probably have definitely under 10, like 5 or 6 this year?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, Teddy, man, great podcast. A lot of good information there. Guys, remember the coupon code Teddy29 for half off of his 3-day all access at sportsmemo.com. We got college basketball, NBA, college football, NFL, which, Teddy, you're back-to-back. NFL Every Game on the Board podcast tomorrow. You and Robbie Vino are both going back-to-back. So excited to talk to you tomorrow. And thanks for your time, Teddy. Guys, best of luck with your bets. We'll be right back with Robbie Vino to finish off the college football Every Game on the Board podcast.
Welcome to the Ford Innovate 191 sales event, driving better SUV value for you. Take the new Ford EcoSport, featuring Ford Sync navigation with touchscreen, Ford Pass with Wi-Fi connectivity, rear-view camera, parking sensors and cruise control. And right now, you can order a 191 Ford EcoSport with an amazing 7-year warranty, 7-year roadside assistance and 2 years free servicing. All from just €23,525. Ford Innovate, driving better value for you. See it for yourself at your local participating Ford dealer. Offer ends December 10th. Ford, go further. Price excludes delivery and related charges. Terms and conditions apply. See Ford.ie for details.